Welcome to the Wi-Tek product introduction channel. We'd like to introduce media converters. Throughout this presentation, we'll be exploring 4 key areas: introduction, benefits, product family, and network solution. Do you know what a media converter is? Long-distance transmission cannot use the network cable, only fiber. The converter can convert the fiber optic port into an Ethernet port, so you can directly power the terminal equipment. Like this diagram, if your PoE switch does not have a fiber port, but needs to transmit over long distances, you can choose this pair of converters. Secondly, the benefits of PoE media converter. Here are the benefits. 1. The maximum transmission distance from 2 to 20 km. 2. The stability of fiber optic transmission guarantees stable monitoring of sensitive areas and point-to-point. 3. The converter's PoE output port provides direct data and power connections for the network camera. 4. Users can integrate new devices into existing cabling infrastructure. Part 3. PoE Media Converter Family. We have speeds from 100 megabits per second to 1000 megabits per second, transmit range from 3 km to 25 km. Single-mode optical fibers can travel 5, 10, 20 km, and beyond. And multimode optical fiber, the combination of different types of optical modules and fiber. The transmission distance depends on the inserted optical module. This is interface and LED indicators. A is used to transmit and B is used to receive. DC in 5 volts is to the power converter, no PoE function. Fiber type is single fiber, and RJ45 port supports 10/100/1000 Mbps. This one has DCN 5 volts, SFP slot, and RJ45 port, which support 802.3 AF/ at PoE output. Part 4, Network Solution. For surveillance deployment, when you power on the converter, PoE port power on the camera, fiber optics are used only to transmit data. For the Wi-Fi coverage project, an additional power supply is needed to power the converter, and the final output PoE out. The uplink port is fiber, downlink port is connected to AP. The converters are integrated with fiber optic interfaces to convert fiber optic Ethernet signals to electrical Ethernet signals, allowing for wider deployment of network equipment and lower costs. In this scenario, we use a pair of converters to enable remote fiber optic connections. Converter A is powered by a PoE switch, and Converter B is powered by DC and transmits data to the IPC. Let's move to the PoE Injector and PoE Splitter. There are 3 parts. Part 1, what are PoE Injector and PoE Splitter? Although PoE-compatible switches exist, many homes, offices, and businesses have non-PoE switches already installed. Replacing the millions of non-PoE-compatible switches is not a viable solution, nor is unnecessarily running 2 cables, one for power and one for data, to a device that could be operated with just 1 cable. A PoE injector is a device used to add power to an Ethernet cable for PoE equipment. It mixes power and data to output as PoE. A PoE splitter functions oppositely to a PoE injector. Rather than taking both a power input and a data input and turning them into a singular power or data output, a PoE splitter takes a power or data input and turns it into 2 separate outputs, one for power and one for data. PoE splitters are the devices that are used together with PoE switches and PoE injectors. They supply power by splitting the power from the data and feeding it to a separate input that a non-PoE compliant device can use. As shown in Figure 1, there are 2 output cables on one side of the PoE splitter, one supplies data, and the other supplies power. In general, PoE splitters are often used in the scenario when there are remote non-PoE devices with no nearby AC outlets. Part 2, Product Family. For PoE Injector, we have a rate from 100 megabits per second to 1000 megabits per second. The name with 31 is a 100 megabit port, and 51 is a gigabit port. 48 volts is standard, 24 volts is non-standard. Use 24 volts for CPE. The last 2 are industrial grade, -40-80 degrees Celsius. The most commonly used security scenarios recommend 30 watts 100 megabit and gigabit. The last one is IP68 waterproof. PoE Splitter family, we have rates from 100 megabits per second to 1000 megabits per second. The first one is not waterproof to put in the iron case and supports DC output 12 volts, 16 volts, 24 volts and 48 volts. The second output is 12 volts. The last one is IP68 waterproof. Part 3 is the network solution. For example, you want to connect the monitoring room and IPC or digital signage. But with the old camera, does not support PoE in, this time you can use a splitter, PoE into data and power. Data can send back the camera screen, and power the digital signage. Although this one has only one DC port, the output voltage can be selected by dialing a code, so there are more optional devices. We also can use our injector and splitter in these scenarios: Wi-Fi coverage, surveillance, VoIP conference call. The next part is the PoE Extender. We have 5 parts: introduction, product family, industrial PoE Extender, indoor and industrial solution. If you only need to extend your network to 100 meters, use the general PoE switch. If you want to extend it more than 250 meters, use the 250 meters long-distance PoE switch. If you want further distance, use the extenders. They can transmit data and power up to 500 meters, no extra power outlets. That is the PoE Extender universal features. Plug and play, just plug in, 0 configuration. Wi-Tek has indoor and outdoor fast Ethernet and gigabit PoE extenders to meet different environments. Wi-Tek PoE Extender can extend up to 650 meters. We recommend not using more than 4 units in one network. Exactly how far you can extend the PoE connection depends on various factors. The higher the input power, the further you can extend the signal, and then you can connect more clients. You can have a look. WI-PE31E supports PoE and DC in. PoE is 30 watts, DC is 60 watts. WI-PE51E/WI-PE51G can expand your cameras and access points. Only the first one requires a 48 to 55 volts DC power supply. The longer the distance of the input power, the greater the transmission. This is the industrial extender, IP68, plug and play, power budget from 60 to 90 watts. Industrial PoE Extender waterproof test, 2 meters underwater, and 3 months later the equipment is still working. In a roadside traffic light scene, a network cable input, and 2 outputs respectively, 30 watts to the IPC power supply, but standard 60 watts to the outdoor AP power supply, do not need to buy switches. The school scenario is powering an outdoor IPC, using an industrial-grade extender that extends from the control room to the court without requiring the user to change the existing network system. Thank you for watching this episode of Wi-Tek's product introduction channel. If you found our content helpful, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated with more exciting content. Your support is our motivation to keep updating. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.